So let's study beating Skytoss with the most simple A move timing that you possibly can. There are a lot of questions about, oh, should you use Vipers? Should you use Infestors? Should you go for Corruptors? Should you go for Hive Tech and Ultras? Since Skytoss has been buffed, there are a lot of people who are struggling against it. This strategy that I go for this game is not a new one. It's something that I was even doing in HOTS, I believe, against people who would try and go for carriers. Skytoss wasn't quite as strong then as it is now, but the principle of the build is still there, so if Protoss starts doing Skytoss more often, this is one potential option. There are a lot of different ways to play against it, so we'll focus more on the relationship between interceptors dealing damage, the relationship between economies and how they're developing, and which upgrades to invest in, and how to use queens. I would say queen use is one of the fundamental skills for a Zerg player to improve upon. Queens can do a lot of things. Sometimes they're just at home doing base maintenance where they inject, they spread creep, maybe they're defending the immediate area, but they can also fight. They're actually very effective, tanky units that just trade well. They're only minerals, so if you're massing a bunch of queens, it can allow you to delay your gas, to get out more drones, and also to bolster the strength of your army. So the opening build order scenario, it's not super important. I was pylon blocked, so I'm just having this drone attack the pylon, and then I rallied 4 links over. And I'm making my first 2 queens and then a 3rd queen, just to try and keep spending my money. Kill the pylon, take the base. As I pointed out in multiple recent coaching sessions, based on the mechanics of Chrono Boost, compared with hatcheries producing workers, Protoss will usually get a slight worker lead in this 1 to 2 base macro stage, and it's when Zerg has their 3 bases injected making drones that they really take the lead in economy. So I just went for an Evo for a potential lane drop. This gets shut down entirely, but it does sort of shape the game, and it gives the Protoss something to play with. You don't want your opponent to get too bored in this game. So whether you're planning to attack or defend or whatever, if you float money that you can't spend into drones, make some queens. Queens are a really good investment that gains value over time as energy units. So I go for the lane drop. It fails miserably, but this read right here is quite important, where I see an overlord, I have an overlord, and I can see the 2 gases here. This allows me to rule out stuff that's like mass warp prism adept timings. Those only take 2 gas that they take in the main really early. So I just have 4 queens, 5 queens now, on a hotkey spreading creep. I don't know for certain that it's Skytoss yet. I've only seen an Oracle and a Void Ray. So it's not until I see a few more air units that I can confirm that it's actually Skytoss. But notice here, at this point in the game I have 60 workers to the Protoss's 49. This is that window where you can really power up and get ahead. And I would say that's the main difference between Grandmaster Zerg players, Master Zerg players, and lower leagues, is that they know those timing windows where it's safe to drone really hard. Just select all your larvae and just slam out a bunch of drones. Because if the Protoss is going for a 3rd base, with some workers there, any timings they do are going to either be very weak or very delayed, to the point where you could just react and then build a bunch of units. So I've seen a few oracles now. I'm quite certain that it's Skytoss. So I'm just massing a bunch of queens, and then I'm going heavier into carapace upgrades than into attack upgrades. Why would I do that? So the reason I'm going carapace upgrades before attack upgrades, or at least prioritizing them more heavily, is because how quickly interceptors deliver damage to their targets. The carrier is a single unit, but inside of it, it has 8 little units that all shoot really fast. So the armor value of a StarCraft unit gets checked every time it takes damage. So every time an interceptor hits your unit, you gain value from that armor investment. So if the interceptors are attacking super fast, then carapace has a ridiculous amount of value. So I'm timing this with +2 carapace, +1 attack. And then I connect right when that upgrade finishes. So let's think about for one, I'm going to go back a little bit. I want to see unit composition, unit ratio, and then we'll talk about formation of the units. So I have 15 queens. Oh my goodness, 15 queens. Look how much energy is here too. You could also imagine that anytime a queen transfuses another queen, that's kind of like getting another queen of value, just for its HP and how long it can stay in the fight. So I sort of have more potential queens here if I can transfuse my stuff. And then behind that, this is kind of like my Protoss lawnmower. It's just really high DPS, and there's a big buffer in front of it. So I can just A-move, for the most part, into this, even though it looks kind of nasty, with a really, really difficult tanking force that can like absorb the damage and then heal each other, and then this stuff just cleans house. So we'll think about putting the queens in front, like giving the Hydras a good bit of distance behind the queens. Just let the queens get there. It's a slow push, and then now we'll slow it down. And I'm just focusing my attention on these front few queens. I have my army key selected, with my queens bound to the army, and my Hydras bound to the army. I click army key, transfuse hotkey, and then I click the queens in the front. It's very predictable which queens are going to be attacked. You don't have to move your mouse that much. It's not like this queen is going to get shot randomly. It's this queen right now. And then maybe if this queen dies, this, kind of the front line, second line, third line of your queens, and the Hydras are just doing work. So I'm healing that front queen. Lots of transfuses on this queen. So they've actually killed almost nothing. And you can just mow down their wave of interceptors. And the Protoss only has 2 carriers at this point, 4 Void Rays. So this is just a tremendous amount of Zerg value. Let's say, why would you not do this push every single game against Protoss? Because it's really strong. You have big beefy tank units in the front and tons of Hydras in the back. Cases where Protoss goes for Mass Adept, they would just kill you, because I skipped roaches. I didn't make any roaches at all. So if I just had queens, they could shade around and kill all my drones. Queens can't really kill adepts. Another case would be if they went for Disruptor. Notice how my stuff is all clumped right here, and it's super slow. So this army is not very microable against Disruptor shots, but if they're investing super heavily into air, they don't have enough gas to make a bunch of Disruptors to counter this. So they've committed to air. So this is a really good timing and composition to go for when the Protoss has committed to multiple Stargates. That could be for some initial Oracles, it could be for a bunch of Phoenixes. So just transfusing, A-moving, and then making Hydras. Another main factor that distinguishes players across the leagues is better players are more likely to continue building stuff during the engagement. A lot of people will just get hung up and stuck, and they won't build anything anymore. I got supply blocked a little bit there, losing some Overseers. But here I could just make another round of Hydras, which I should. Yeah, there we go. More Hydras can come. A pretty nice transition from this would be to go into Hive Tech and just add maybe an Ultralisk or 2 in the front to be an even more effective tank. Ultras are very sturdy, and it kind of follows that principle of armor upgrades meaning a lot against interceptors dealing damage. Carriers are very, very bad against Ultralisks with their chitinous and decent armor upgrades. So that's it. Carapace-based Mass Queen, Mass Hydra timing attacks against Skytoss. Do you ever hotkey your Overseers to a separate hotkey to get them to follow a slow unit? No, I don't ever do that. That's not a bad idea. That could be pretty cool. Can you comment at all on the gas timings during this analysis? Like when and how you made choices to use gas. So I can break that down real fast. So the first upgrade I took was Carapace. That was when I was mining off of 2 gases. Usually you take your second gas when you have 2 base mineral saturation. And then once you have 3 base mineral saturation, you can just take the rest of your gases if you're against a Skytoss player. So in that window where you have 3 base mineral, but you haven't filled up your gases yet, you make a lot of minerals, and that's when you start massing a bunch of queens. So that's basically the timings of when you take your gas. And the gas spending order was, in this game, Carapace first, and then a Lair, and a second Evo. And then I took ranged attack. When Lair finished, I took a Hydra Den, and +2 Carapace, when +1 Carapace was done. Hydra speed and range, and then I go push and spend the rest of my gas into Hydra and like 3 to 5 Overseers.